Hello, you're watching Context. I'm Dilek Tuna. As ceasefire negotiations between Israel and Hamas reach a delicate tipping point, diplomacy is once again on centre stage. The Gaza talks brokered in Doha appear to be inching forward with nearly 90% of terms agreed. While a fresh complication has emerged, Netanyahu is reportedly in discussions with foreign governments to accept Palestinians who wish to leave Gaza, a move raising alarm bells across the region and beyond. And today on Context, we break down the three major fronts shaping this fragile moment: high-level US-Israel coordination, the structure of a potential ceasefire, and the question no one wants to answer: what comes after displacement? Joining us is Mr. Melih Demirtas. He's a researcher and former diplomat, joining us live from Ankara, Turkey. Welcome to the program, Mr. Demirtas.
Thank you, Ms. Tuna. It's a pleasure to be with you again.
Now, what should we read into Netanyahu's second visit to the White House in such a short time? Is this symbolic, strategic, or both?
We can say both. If we can say United States and Israel have been important allies more than 60, 70 years, we can say that in every development, in every critical international area, and every critical international, maybe high tension, we can see the presidents, the prime ministers, both United States presidents and prime ministers of Israel, they've been always together. Think about the second half of the 20th century, and of course, now in the maybe first decades of the 21st century, you can say nothing's changed. But one thing's changed is that the credibility of this maybe Western pact, of the credibility of this alliance between the United States and Israel has been shaken. Has been shaken deeply because of this humanitarian atmosphere, because of the humanitarian deep crisis, which is so hot topic of this international agenda, of this international expert level, diplomatic level. And now I think Mr. Netanyahu, in all this tensive atmosphere between Israel and Iran, of course in the issue of Palestine, maybe he just visits this important president, Mr. Trump, in every maybe a month, not maybe 2 times in every month, maybe 3 times, we do not know. But the atmosphere, I think, needs this. He still needs this diplomacy. He still needs this communications, of course, between the higher level of diplomatic and, of course, government personnel. But the scenes, this is not satisfactory. Because Mr. Trump and Mr. Netanyahu, they can be somehow, of course, very direct. They really see and they really say something in the international politics so direct, and it can harm maybe the consciousness. It can harm, of course, the soft side of this international politics. And what we have seen in the last 2 years, unfortunately, has shaken all of us. As the people of course, Europe, as the people of the Middle East, as the people of Eurasia, we are shaken so much. Not maybe, this is not the first time of the human history. We know that there are many destructive atmospheres, wars, but in such an atmosphere of this digital world, we cannot say that we cannot turn a blind eye to all these developments. Okay. Now, Mr. Trump maybe wants to show his power, wants to show his maybe voice. He has a strong voice. We know that Mr. Trump's character, also American political character, especially in this time, they want to show that they are still maybe the #1 power. They are still the boss of this international affairs, international politics. But they maybe forget something. There are also some other forces. There are also some other maybe public opinion, even from some very quote-unquote small or middle-sized state. The public opinions can be so effective in such an era. And so maybe they still continue to show their friendship and alliance in every occasion, in every maybe chance they can find. And now we see maybe once again, yesterday, very intimate connections between the two leaders.
Okay. Now, Mr. Demirtas, talks are also taking place in Doha. Nearly 90% agreement has reportedly been reached. What are the sticking points in the remaining 10% there?
Yes, Qatar and of course Doha talks. Think about these first months of the strike. We always think that something can be found between these, of course, powers. Hamas government, Netanyahu government, Israel and Palestine. And Qatar always has maybe shown a real middle ground between these actors. Of course, Doha talks now turns to be a real issue and real, of course, opportunity, of diplomacy, maybe seekers of diplomacy representatives. This 10%, as all the people, I mean, all these diplomatic and, of course, international expert level think that it's about the forces. I mean, the force on the ground. What can be done with this Hamas force? Because Hamas is an important force. Hamas also represents a kind of years of maybe of this power derivation inside Palestine. Of course, not in every Palestinian community level. It is not supported. We know that there are important distinctions between Hamas and between other sections of this politics in Palestine. But still, of course, is the democratic election, the democratic voice, and the Palestinian people gave maybe this voice for this term to the Hamas authority. But the Israel authority said that there will be no, remnant of such a power of maybe military or whatever you call, terrorist, quote unquote, they call always. But from another side of point, every kind of power, because comes from the state of Israel. As our president, as Turkey's president always, of course, declares officially, it can have some very devastating, like a terroristic act in some fields, like in Palestine. As we all see, about 60,000 people is unfortunately lost their lives, and still they are losing their lives. So this 10% will remain, I think, because of this Hamas situation, but also because of the Netanyahu government. Because soft politics and soft diplomacy, these are important terms. These must be important terms for Israeli politics now. As Mr. Netanyahu showed yesterday with Mr. Trump, he can be a very, I think, quote-unquote, soft politician. Even he can offer some, Nobel, prizes to someone, like Trump or some other personalities. We need such soft attitude, soft diplomacy, also from the side of Israel.
Okay. And is there a credible verification mechanism being discussed for Israeli troop withdrawals, or is that still undefined?
We can say that Israeli attitude is also dependent on maybe how United States will react in this general atmosphere of not only Middle East, but also in Eurasian terms. Because the things and the crises, they cannot be separated so easily. Some experts always, they're really intending to making some separations between the crises. I mean, Iranian crisis is so different from Palestinian crisis, or it cannot be bound, it cannot be, connected to the Ukrainian issue. But I'm not so pessimistic about it. And I'm always thinking that international areas still so fastly changing, especially in these last 30 years in Eurasia. I will include this Middle Eastern, also Israel and Palestinian dilemmas inside these Eurasian, balances. And I can say that because of the United States are thinking all these actors attitude, even think about Mr. Trump's last declarations after this last BRICS conference in Brazil, which is like in the last 2-3 days in Brazil. I mean, the BRICS conference between Chinese, of course, Russian representatives. And I think when Israel took some steps in such ceasefires, in such agreements, always it can maybe make this step with the permission, quote unquote, or with the maybe approval of the United States grand strategy in Eurasia. And we can say Russia and China, and of course now Iran, we do not know still this government changes, we do not know some reform attempt will take place or not in the Iranian government about nuclear, of course, situation, and we will still now, I think this last declaration from Mr. Pezeshkian, Iranian leader, is going to be positive. Also, our president, Turkish president, and of course, Mr. Aliyev, Azerbaijani president, and the other authorities, they have some positive, I think, diplomatic now connections with these Iranian leaders. So Israel, I think, will observe all the balances in this near term. But still, Mr. Trump's and United States diplomacy, it must also have some much more lower term, much more maybe softer diplomacy in this area, especially in such a sensitive and conflictual environment, which is still going on in Ukraine and every part of this area.
Okay. And now let's move on to Turkey. Turkey has publicly supported ceasefire efforts. How is Ankara viewing these latest developments? Is it playing any unofficial role in parallel diplomacy?
It's a good term, yes. Parallel diplomacy or backdoor maybe channels. As you know that the highest authorities, Mr. Kalin as the intelligence services, the highest authority, also Mr. Fidan, Foreign Minister, and of course Mr. Erdogan. All these important authorities, they have important roles in having these backdoor channels. First of all, with the Hamas, of course, leaders or technical, military personnel, whatever maybe we can talk about here, of course, representation now, because, you know, many people are also not in this world anymore because of this Israel attack. Think about that. If we have some deal, if we have some agreement, you must have also another side. But I think that now in the Hamas corridors or the Hamas maybe administration centers, how many people left, we don't know still because of the 2 years heavy attacks from the Israeli, of course, very modernized equipment. But still, there are some responsible persons, and they have some connections, of course, with the Turkey leadership. And I believe that this backdoor channel is important. Yes, Turkey can have this backdoor channel with the Middle Eastern important powers. Think about this last Syrian crisis. Think about the former Iraqi issue. Also, the other very sensitive developments in Lebanon, in Jordan. Of course, we still hope that the past positive Turkish-Israeli connections can be established again. But in such an atmosphere where Mr. Netanyahu still seems to be so brave in defending some this very devastating attitude, military attitude on the field, how can, of course, Turkey's diplomacy can turn with Israel so positive? I don't know still, but from the side of Hamas, yes, he had some backdoor channel and backdoor diplomacy, and also it's affected, in my opinion, positively this diplomacy, this last agreement between the two sides.
Okay. Mr. Demirtas, I want to come back to Turkey in a moment, but first I want to ask you about, I'm sure you watched the endearing moment when Netanyahu and Trump were having their discussion in the White House, and he said Palestinian people will have the choice. And if, you know, those who want to leave will leave and those who want to stay will stay. So he made it sound like, you know, they will be approached very politely and asked this question. Do you think the relocation plan is being framed as voluntary to sidestep international legal scrutiny?
This is the sensitive part, of course, the most sensitive part. In this maybe previous questions, we said also with 10%, I mean, everything's sold now, a small portion left between the two sides. But it is not a small portion. I think it's the biggest part of the problem. Israeli people, I mean, previous Judaist history knows the pain, the terrible and dark history of Exodus. I mean, Exodus has been the reality of these Jewish people from the ancient times, from Egypt to Europe, even to Russian and the other continent. And they found, at the end of the Second World War, their land, their historical land. We all hoped, of course, as the international experts, that this land and all these communities can live in a peaceful manner in these territories. But still, in the last 70, 80 years, we could not talk about in such a peaceful atmosphere. So, what we can say that this exodus of the Palestinians, I mean, who are really another important inhabitants, another important population of this region, like the Jewish people. Of course, because of this exodus, I mean, there are many kinds of course, exoduses from the historical times. But with the Jewish people, of course, this Palestinian people, whether they are Muslim, of course, before Islam, they have always also stayed there with another religions, with another cultures. Now, after, of course, the acceptance of this Muslim, Islamic culture, but the people is not changing. They are ancestors, they are this legacy holders, and we cannot think about such an exodus plan as Mr. Trump and Mr. Netanyahu tries to show maybe in a smooth way. Yes, they try and really showing this like in a project of commercial advertisement, as a commercial, and I'm sorry to tell that as a casino or a hotel project, but no. I mean, these are the people, these are the history, and first of all, Israeli people must know the value, the meaning of this culture, the meaning of this history, the meaning of the pain of the human history. And because of this, they really must understand, first of all, the people must stay, first of all, there. The people must stay there. There can be some agreement, there can be some truce. Of course, they must have some, of course, some liberal support from the Western countries, of course, with some money, with some new investment projects, but not under the bombardment, not under the heavy jets or military equipments of Israel. No. First of all, the guns, the voices of guns must stop. And after that, of course, the support, the investment plans can start, but with the people there. Not with the people another place like in the Egyptian territory, like in the Jordanian territory, another side of this world or Middle East. No, the people are also like this another side medallion of the history of this land, like this Jewish culture and history.
Okay. Now, let's go back to Turkey. Could Turkey emerge as a broker or guarantor in this or future stages of the conflict?
In the last maybe 20, 25 years, if you looking the record of course, mediation record, also the positive attitude or positive role of Turkish diplomacy in several kinds of the crisis, you can see that, yes, Turkey has really showed and proved success story in different kinds of conflictual environments, whether they are in Asia, whether they are also even in Latin America, very far from Turkey, very far from, Anatolia, in Asia. Now, in Palestine, in this Middle East, which is very, near countries, they are very similar also cultures to Turkey. Why not? We can say that. To your question, we can say that we must be on the table. But again, as I respond in my previous answers, how we can maybe talk in such a leadership attitude like Netanyahu? First of all, we must think about that this government attitude, this government harsh responses must come to an end, and Turkey is softer. We must believe and we must accept that Turkey has softer approach, even if it's a very important military and intelligence force. We think about our role in NATO, in every kind of conflictual environment now in the last years. But even for such abilities, Turkey always chose to be in the softer side. So we expect Mr. Netanyahu's government to be also in the soft politics again. Every country has some security problem. Also in our country, in Turkey, we have tens or maybe hundreds of security threats since the last maybe 50 years. But still, we always try to also stay in the softer side of the history, in the real legitimate side of the history, and we still expect Mr. Netanyahu's government to be also in the same place. Also with the Hamas leaders, yes, their actions and their maybe some violence, of course, responses to some events, I think our higher authorities give some, of course, diplomatic warnings to them. But still, I think we do not have a real constructive channel with Israel, and we hope in the next month maybe to find such a diplomatic atmosphere. Of course, first of all, with the help of this diplomatic moderations.
Okay. Millie, I want to shift the focus a little bit now. While much of the region's focus remains on the Gaza ceasefire, a parallel development is unfolding that could reshape the South Caucasus, and this concerns us here at home in Baku right now. Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev and Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan have agreed to meet in Abu Dhabi, a sign of diplomatic momentum, but also a meeting taking place against the backdrop of rising tensions between Azerbaijan and Iran, amplified by the Israel-Iran conflict. What's your reading? Do you see the timing of this meeting as linked in any way to the rising Israel-Iran tensions, which have indirectly strained Iran-Azerbaijan ties?
This is also what I want maybe humbly explain, that all such international developments have some connections between each other. Although some experts tend to see that conflict in always some limited area, from Caucasia, Middle East, And Jordan, Palestinian territory is always must be restricted or also limited there. No, the time is not like this anymore. The time is not like this Cold War thinking of limitations. And as you said, that Armenian and Azerbaijani leadership maybe have shown this skill to be together in every opportunity. Not only in Abu Dhabi. I mean, of course, the two lands, as Qatar, as the Arab Emirates. I previously always in my previous talk said that they are shining like the new stars of diplomatic areas. I mean, many people, many diplomats or high level, also tradesmen, they're always, even Mr. Trump, first visit, we do not forget that they're always, appearing there. But it is not about Abu Dhabi or other places. It's about this motivation of his leaders. I mean, both Mr. Aliyev and Mr. Pashinyan, of course, after the military victorious term, very legitimate right of Azerbaijan from this very darkish history of the post-Cold War, we can say that Mr. Pashinyan's government seized, of course, an opportunity to talk about this trade perspective, about the real future of their people. I mean, because Armenian people, Armenian youth, especially, the new generations, demanding something. With the new projects, think about the Gaza, think about the other trade options, think about, of course, this Chinese-led, important and very, of course, frightening project, quote unquote, for some Western players, first of all, for the United States, I think, also many experts thinking this, but still, Armenia and Azerbaijan starting to be really the key players about such projects. And we hope that Russia and Iran will not oppose as they doing as they have done. I mean, in the very near future, and they will also support that all this maybe middle diplomacy channels can also affect their economy very positively. I mean, both Russia and Iran, and also, of course, with the help and support of Turkey to both these important space of Caucasia, we can find a very shining again future in our coming term. But yes, to your question, for Israel and Iran conflictual environment, maybe these leaders, I mean Azerbaijan and Armenian leaders, found this opportunity to talk about their previous and now ongoing problems, and I think they are really successful in finding some common ground.
Okay, Mr. Demirtas, thank you so much for your analysis. It's been most insightful.
Thank you, Ms. Tuna. It's a pleasure.
And that brings us to the end of another episode of Context. Thanks for watching.